The year was 2013, and downtown Los Angeles wore its usual mask of contradiction. Glass towers casting shadows over crumbling sidewalks, luxury cars passing tents pitched against graffitied walls. In the heart of this chaos stood a building that had seen more darkness than most. The Cecil Hotel, a 14-story monument to human misery, where serial killers had slept, where the Night Stalker had lived, and where dozens had chosen to end their lives. But nothing in its blood-soaked history would compare to what was about to unfold on its rooftop water tanks. On February 19, 2013, guests at the Cecil Hotel began complaining about the water. It tasted strange, metallic, wrong. Some said it came out black at first. Others noticed a foul odor, something organic and rotting that lingered in their mouths long after brushing their teeth. The pressure was weak, inconsistent. Maintenance workers were dispatched to investigate the rooftop water supply system. What they found would become one of the most disturbing and widely discussed mysteries of the digital age. Santiago Lopez climbed the rusty ladder to the top of the water tank, his radio crackling with static. The Los Angeles sun beat down mercilessly on the black asphalt roof. He reached the top of the 4 large cylindrical tanks and peered into the open hatch of the one on the northwest corner. The smell hit him first, a wave of decay so powerful he stumbled backward, gagging. Inside the tank, floating face up in the dark water, was a naked young woman. Her body had been there for weeks. The woman was Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old Canadian student from Vancouver who had been reported missing by her family 19 days earlier. She had checked into the Cecil Hotel on January 26th, planning to stay for a few days before continuing south to Santa Cruz. She never made it. But the discovery of her body was just the beginning, because 4 days before she was found, the Los Angeles Police Department had released something that would haunt the internet forever. Elevator surveillance footage from the night Elisa disappeared. The video was 4 minutes of pure, inexplicable terror. Detective Wallace Kim sat in the cramped security office of the Cecil Hotel, watching the grainy footage for the 15th time. The timestamp read January 31st, 2013, approximately 11 p.m. Elisa entered the elevator, pressed multiple buttons, almost all of them, and then stepped back, waiting. The doors didn't close. She waited, looking around nervously. Then she moved to the corner of the elevator, pressing herself against the wall, as if hiding. She peeked out into the hallway, her head jutting out quickly, then pulling back. She did this several times, like someone checking to see if they were being followed. Then came the truly disturbing part. Elisa stepped out of the elevator completely and began gesturing wildly with her hands, moving them in strange, jerky patterns, up, down, counting on her fingers, waving, as if having a conversation with someone who wasn't there. Or perhaps, Detective Kim thought with a chill, as if she was trying to explain something desperately to someone just out of frame. She stepped back into the elevator, pressed more buttons, and stood in the corner again. The elevator doors still didn't close. She waited. Then she walked out again, this time disappearing to the left, out of the camera's view. The elevator doors finally closed. It was the last time anyone saw Elisa Lam alive. The footage went viral within hours of its release. Millions watched it, replaying those 4 minutes, dissecting every gesture, every expression. The theories exploded across forums, YouTube channels, and Reddit threads. Was she running from someone? Was she having a psychotic episode? Was she possessed? Was she playing a game? The internet became obsessed, but Detective Kim focused on the facts. Elisa Lam had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. She was on medication, Wellbutrin, Lamictal, Seroquel, and Effexor. Her family said she was doing well, excited about her trip, posting regularly on her Tumblr blog about her adventures. But somewhere between checking in and disappearing, something had gone terribly wrong. The Cecil Hotel itself seemed like a location designed for tragedy. Built in 1924 during Los Angeles' downtown boom, it had quickly deteriorated as the neighborhood declined. By the 1950s, it had become a residence for transients, struggling artists, and those with nowhere else to go. In 1964, a woman named Goldie Osgood was raped and murdered in her room. Her killer was never found. In 1985, serial killer Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, stayed on the 14th floor while terrorizing Los Angeles. In 1991, Austrian serial killer Jack Unterweger lived there while murdering sex workers. Suicides were so common that the hotel stopped keeping accurate records. Some rooms still had original fixtures from the 1920s. The hallways were long, dimly lit, covered in stained carpet that absorbed sound. The building felt wrong, survivors would later say. It felt like it was watching you. Elisa had been staying in a shared dormitory room on the 5th floor. Her roommates told police she had been acting strangely in the days before she disappeared, talking to herself, leaving and returning at odd hours, seeming paranoid. The hotel staff moved her to a private room after complaints. That was the last time her roommates saw her. Detective Kim reviewed her Tumblr blog, Ether Fields. The posts were artistic, melancholic, filled with quotes about loneliness and mental health. One post, written just days before her disappearance, quoted Chuck Palahniuk, "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life." Another featured a photo of a dark hallway with the caption, "I've been everywhere, and I've seen everything, and I've done everything." But nothing suggested suicidal ideation. Nothing hinted at what was coming. The autopsy results came back inconclusive. No signs of physical trauma, no evidence of sexual assault. Toxicology showed none of her prescribed medications in her system, meaning she hadn't been taking her pills for days, possibly weeks. The coroner ruled the death an accidental drowning, with bipolar disorder as a significant contributing factor. But that ruling only raised more questions. How did Elisa get to the roof? The door was locked and alarmed. Security footage showed no one accessing the roof during the time she disappeared. How did she access the water tank? The tanks were 10 feet tall with heavy lids that required significant force to open. Why was she naked? Her clothes and belongings were found floating in the tank with her, along with her room key. Why were there no signs of struggle? The elevator footage haunted everyone who saw it. Behavioral analysts studied it frame by frame. Some said her movements were consistent with a psychotic episode. Others argued she looked terrified, clearly running from someone. Paranormal investigators claimed she was interacting with a supernatural entity. Internet sleuths discovered the elevator's buttons corresponded to floors where previous deaths had occurred. Then someone noticed something else. The elevator doors never closed while Elisa was inside. In normal operation, elevator doors close after approximately 10 seconds. But in the video, they remained open for over 2 minutes while she was present. Only after she left the frame did they finally close, as if something or someone was holding them open. One theory gained particular traction online: the connection to a Japanese horror film called Dark Water. Released in 2002, the film tells the story of a woman and her daughter who move into a rundown apartment building with a mysterious water tank on the roof. A young girl had drowned in the tank, and her ghost haunts the building. The water turns black. The elevator malfunctions. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Even more disturbing, the film featured a character named Cecilia, and the building in the movie bore a striking resemblance to the Cecil Hotel. The main character's daughter was named Ikuko, which, when translated, means to stay. Elisa's autopsy report noted her body had been in the water for approximately 14 to 19 days. The Cecil Hotel has 14 floors. But Detective Kim didn't believe in ghosts or movie curses. He believed in evidence, and the evidence pointed to a tragic accident caused by untreated mental illness. Yet, even he had to admit, something about the case felt incomplete, like a puzzle with missing pieces deliberately removed. Katie O'Brien was a college student in Boston when she first saw the elevator video in 2013. She couldn't stop watching it. She started researching the Cecil Hotel, discovering its horrific history, reading about Elisa's life, studying every detail of the case. She wasn't alone. Thousands of amateur detectives became obsessed, forming online communities dedicated to solving the mystery. They discovered that Elisa had been interested in the game Elevator to Another World, an urban legend originating in Korea. The ritual involved pressing elevator buttons in a specific sequence to transport yourself to an alternate dimension. The sequence Elisa pressed in the footage matched some versions of the ritual. Had she been attempting it? Or was it coincidence? They found her Tumblr posts from January 2013, written just before she vanished. One particularly haunting entry read, "I've been trying to lay low and not make people annoyed with me." Another, "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life." Her last post, published the day she disappeared, was a photo of a window with iron bars, captioned simply, "Good morning." Web sleuths tracked down a musician named Morbid who had stayed at the Cecil Hotel around the same time as Elisa. His music video, released just before Elisa's disappearance, featured imagery of water tanks, drowning, and death. He became a person of interest in the online investigation, receiving death threats until police confirmed he had been in Mexico when Elisa vanished. The harassment destroyed his music career. This became a pattern. Every lead the internet followed resulted in real people being accused, harassed, and threatened. The obsession with solving Elisa's death created new victims. But Katie O'Brien kept digging. She wasn't interested in harassment. She wanted truth. She studied the building schematics of the Cecil Hotel. She discovered that the roof access door, while alarmed, had been malfunctioning for months. The fire escape led directly to the roof. Elisa could have accessed it without triggering alarms. She researched bipolar disorder and psychotic episodes. She learned that sudden discontinuation of medications like Effexor, which Elisa was taking, could cause severe withdrawal symptoms including paranoia, hallucinations, and erratic behavior. Elisa hadn't been taking her medication. She might have been experiencing a complete psychological break. The elevator behavior, analyzed by psychiatrists, was consistent with someone in acute psychosis, hiding from perceived threats, performing compulsive gestures, responding to auditory or visual hallucinations that weren't there. The strange hand movements could have been her attempting to count, to ground herself in reality while her mind fractured. 10 years later, in 2023, Katie published her findings in a comprehensive blog post. She concluded that Elisa Lam most likely experienced a severe bipolar episode, stopped taking her medication, became increasingly paranoid, accessed the roof through the fire escape during a moment when security wasn't monitoring, climbed into the water tank possibly seeking safety or driven by delusions, and accidentally drowned when she couldn't climb back out. It was the most logical explanation. It fit the evidence. It explained the behavior. But it didn't explain everything. It didn't explain why multiple guests reported seeing a young Asian woman on the 14th floor, the floor Elisa wasn't staying on, in the nights before her disappearance. It didn't explain the elevator doors. It didn't explain why her body was found in the northwest tank when the southeast tank had an open hatch that would have been far easier to access. It didn't explain the reports from guests who said they heard screaming from the roof the night of January 31st. And it didn't explain what happened to Elisa's phone, which was never found. In 2021, Netflix released a documentary series about the case called Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. It explored every angle: the mental health explanation, the conspiracy theories, the hotel's dark history, the impact of internet sleuthing on real investigations. The series interviewed Elisa's friends, hotel staff, investigators, and web sleuths. But it couldn't provide the one thing everyone wanted: closure. Because the truth about what happened to Elisa Lam in those final hours may never be fully known. The elevator footage shows us only 4 minutes of a story that unfolded over days. What happened before she entered that elevator? What was she running from, real or imagined? What drove her to the roof? What were her final thoughts as she climbed into that water tank? The Cecil Hotel closed in 2017 for renovations and reopened in 2021 as affordable housing with no commercial hotel operations. The water tanks were drained, cleaned, and sealed. The rooftop is now completely inaccessible. It's as if the building itself wants to forget. But the internet never forgets. Today, Elisa Lam's story remains one of the most discussed unsolved mysteries online. New theories emerge regularly. Every few months, someone claims to have found the real answer. YouTube videos analyzing the elevator footage have collectively been viewed hundreds of millions of times. Her Tumblr blog remains active, a digital memorial frozen in time. The last posts from January 2013 still visible. The case has become a mirror, reflecting our deepest fears and obsessions. For some, it's proof of supernatural forces, of buildings that consume souls, of dimensions bleeding into our reality. For others, it's a tragic reminder of how mental illness can destroy a young life. For internet detectives, it's an endless puzzle, tantalizing in its incompleteness. And for Elisa's family, who rarely speak publicly about the case, it's an ongoing nightmare. Their daughter's final moments dissected by millions of strangers, her death transformed into entertainment, her memory obscured by conspiracy theories and sensationalism. Her mother, in one rare interview, said simply, "She was not a mysterious person. She was just a girl who loved to travel and write. She had an illness. Sometimes that's all there is to it." But the Cecil Hotel seems to resist simple explanations. Its walls have absorbed too much darkness, witnessed too many deaths, harbored too many predators. Whether that history creates actual supernatural energy or simply attracts tragedy like a lodestone draws iron, the result is the same: a building that feels cursed. Some believe Elisa's spirit still haunts the Cecil, that guests in the renovated building have reported strange occurrences: water turning cold suddenly, elevator buttons pressing themselves, shadows moving in peripheral vision. Others dismiss these as urban legends, the power of suggestion after hearing about the case. What remains undeniable is the footage. Those 4 minutes of grainy security video have become iconic, studied and analyzed more than perhaps any other piece of evidence in modern mystery history. Every gesture Elisa makes has been interpreted 1,000 different ways. Is she hiding, playing, terrified, psychotic, performing a ritual, talking to someone, talking to something? Watch it yourself. Form your own conclusion. But be warned, once you see it, you'll understand why millions of people can't look away. There's something about those movements, that fear in her eyes, the way she keeps checking the hallway, the strange hand gestures. Something that reaches through the screen and grips your spine. Oh, because whether you believe in ghosts or mental illness, curses or coincidence, one truth remains. Elisa Lam was terrified in those final moments. She was running from something. And whatever it was, real or imagined, human or otherwise, it caught her. The Cecil Hotel stands today on South Main Street in downtown Los Angeles, its Art Deco facade hiding secrets that may never be revealed. The building has been rebranded, renovated, sanitized. But buildings remember. Walls remember. And on quiet nights when the city sleeps and the halls are empty, some say you can still hear footsteps on the roof, the creak of a heavy lid opening, and the soft splash of water disturbed by something or someone that should no longer be there. Elisa Lam checked into the Cecil Hotel on January 26, 2013. She never checked out. Her story became a phenomenon, but beneath the theories and speculation lies a simpler, sadder truth. A young woman, far from home, struggling with an illness she couldn't control, met a tragic end in a building that has specialized in tragic ends for nearly a century. The water tank where she died has been replaced. The rooftop is sealed. The elevator has been serviced. But the questions remain, unanswered and unanswerable, floating in the digital consciousness like a body in dark water. Impossible to ignore, impossible to fully understand, and impossible to forget. And perhaps that's the real mystery of Elisa Lam. Not what happened to her, but why we can't stop trying to find out.